as per usual, what we do here, for anyone who's new, I read a philosophy paper like this one right here, and then we review it at the end, as always, because I have been... I've got strikes against me on both Twitch and YouTube. I am not endorsing this. We read this and we evaluate it. Like, this is like educational to see if these people have anything to say. And so this is Critical Rationalism and the Internet by Donald Gillies in the Journal of Philosophical Investigations. And as always, feel free to ask questions along the way if you're in chat, but it's my first time reading it too, and I will attempt to read and to explain what's going on and see if there's any value in it. If you're here at the end, then we have a rating system, and the rating system goes up on site. Basically, you spam emotes. It's a emote review. So you just got to be here. Let's start by being pissed off that internet is not capitalized in the paper. Dude, like, we had someone just like reference the internet. It was like Internet 2005. That's what they thought a good reference was in one of our papers not that long ago. But anyway, let's see. This one looks a little bit better than that. So let's go. Introduction, History of the Internet. It was during the late 60s and early 70s that, well, actually, no, I'm going to also change my, I've been trying to get out of just chatting and go to writing and reading section. Yeah, before we think about 2050, well, yeah, if we're all still alive in, 26 years, or 25 years, basically, at this point. It was during the late 60s and early 70s that the first tentative steps were taken to connect computers so that information could be passed between them. A number of systems were developed for this purpose in different parts of the world, but perhaps the most significant was the one produced by the USA's Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency, DARPA. DARPA's packet switching network was called ARPANET. A well-known anecdote relating to this early period concerns the first ARPANET link, which was established between the University of California, Los Angeles, UCLA, and the Stanford Research Institute on 29 October 1969. Nice. To check whether the link had been established, the participants were in touch by phone. First, L was typed and it was checked by phone that it appeared on the other end. Then O was typed and its appearance was checked again. However, G was typed and the system crashed. Okay. Still, great oaks do sometimes from tiny acorns grow. By 1981, ARPANET had 213 hosts. Another significant date was 1 January 83, when ARPANET replaced some of its earlier protocols by the much superior TCP/IP protocols. TCP/IP allowed ARPANET to be connected up to other networks. Yeah, so there's images of like how it grew from like a few connections to like a network, to like a proper net of like things, and then you've got the TCP/IP, which allowed it to like grow even more. All right, the story now shifts to CERN. I will attempt to fake French, Conseil Européen pour la Recherche Nucléaire, which in the second half of the 80s created for its own internal use an extensive internet using TCP/IP protocols. Tim Berners-Lee, who was working for CERN, had the idea of improving this by using hypertext. He was allowed to proceed with his plan, and by Christmas 1990 had developed the basic tools for what he decided to call the World Wide Web. These include the Hypertext Transfer Protocol, HTTP, and the Hypertext Markup Language, HTML. In January 91, the first web servers outside CERN were established, and in the 90s, the growth of the internet became explosive. In 93, only 1% of telecommunicated information went through the internet, but by 2000, this had risen to 51%, becoming 97% by 2007. Anyone who's hacked knows this? Yeah. Well, remember, this is a philosophy paper. This is giving a very brief history overview for some people, because you got to remember, some philosophers are like just old people that have not actually dealt with the internet. Even now, these are like, there's people that are just like very analog. So that's just, yeah, Hacker Man. Yeah. It is worth noting that virtually all the research and development which led to the modern internet was publicly funded. In fact, commercial use of ARPANET was strictly forbidden, and connections were restricted to military sites and universities. CERN was, of course, also government funded. Both CERN and Berners-Lee made the web available freely with no patent and no royalty payment being required. Once the internet had been developed, however, it was rapidly commercialized, leading to the dot-com crash of 2001. Okay, now you can see this is a very, very big shift right here. Like, what do you mean the dot-com crash of 2001? The dot-com crash of 2001 did not hurt the internet. It hurt businesses on the internet and a lot of businesses, but that actually has nothing to do with the internet itself. So the idea that like the internet itself was, for cost, was a business, that's not true. The dot-com crash right here, this fucking, it's a little bit of a non sequitur, so I wonder what's going on. Because the dot-com crash did not hurt the internet. It hurt businesses running with the internet. Okay. Now, let us now return to critical rationalism. Okay, so now we're complete shift. Hard shift. Like hard left turn. This is the philosophy first developed by Popper. Yet Popper died in 1994 when the use of the internet was still in its very early stages. It might therefore seem unlikely that any of Popper's writings could have a direct application to the internet. Yet I will argue that one of Popper's main theories does apply in a very striking fashion to the internet. This is his theory of World 3. Chocolate says they obtained tons of investment before that from the markets. Grant, a lot of that got buried, of the buried fiber was left dark until needed and got a little ahead of themselves. That's fair. Like, there was infrastructure. That's true. Infrastructure was getting put down. Popper seemed to have developed his theory of World 3 in the second half of the 60s. What became the standard account of his theory appeared in chapters 3 and 4 of Popper's book, Objective Knowledge, which was published in 1972. Chapter 3, Epistemology Without a Knowing Subject, had already been published in 1968, while Chapter 4, On the Theory of Objective Mind, was based on articles which had appeared in 68 and 70. In his 1972 exposition, Popper used the term Third World, but later followed with a suggestion by his friend Sir John Eccles. He preferred to use the term World 3. In this paper, I will use Third World and World 3 interchangeably. Latvian says it's absolutely vital that we don't allow commercial use of the ARPANET. I swear the DoD isn't the biggest driver of the American economy. Yeah, I mean, it's always a thing to see like how much money the government spends on military, and then that gets filtered out into the rest of the economy. It's like we have all this money that goes to the government, and then they spend it on the military, and then the military, well, of course, has civilian contractors. So a lot of this stuff it's just socialism by a different name. They don't like calling it that in the U.S. It's like, oh, it's military spending. It's like, yeah, that's a socialist organization, basically. It's like, yeah, everyone gets treated like everyone's got the VA and stuff like that. So, yeah. Okay. Popper's theory of World 3 was developed from Frege's theory of the Third Realm. Yeah, and if you go into the German, you can see the Third Reich is the term Frege used, which in turn had been developed from Plato's famous theory of a transcendental world of forms. Yeah. For people who care about Frege, he said, where do ideas come from? Ideas come from this third realm. So, because you can write down all your thoughts in sort of like linguistic formalized language, but then where do new thoughts come from if they're all just recombinations of like other things? Well, to have an idea, it came from some other place. Yeah. However, there were two very important differences between Popper's theory and those of his predecessors. Both Plato and Frege thought the world or realm which they postulated existed outside of space and time independently of human beings. Popper, on the other hand, regarded his World 3 as existing in time and created by human beings. Okay, so we've got some like Boltzmann brain thing going on here, coming back to what we were discussing earlier. There is some brain in the world. From the dates just given, we can say that the internet in its modern form appeared about 20 years after Popper had developed his theory of World 3, and that it took a further 10 to 15 years for the internet to assume its present dominant position in contemporary life. Despite these long time gaps, I will try to show in the next section that Popper's account of World 3 applies very well indeed to the internet. This is what, in my view, gives Popper's theory of World 3 a prophetic quality. Dun dun dun. Is there a World 1 and World 2? There is. I don't know. I don't remember what Popper was saying, but like this World 3 is like this sort of like communal thought, I think. Sense reference Frege? Yes, that Frege. So, Frege had a few different ideas about like once he had his full like sense reference and what thoughts were, he could explain all sorts of things in mind, but he couldn't explain where new thoughts came from, and so he needed a third realm to give you new thoughts. But like once you have all the other stuff, it kind of like you don't have any idea where the new stuff comes from. Facebook, yes, exactly. That's what it was. Popper's account of World 3 applies to the internet. Popper begins by characterizing the third world, or world 3, as the world of objective contents of thoughts, especially of scientific and poetic thoughts and works of art. Okay, what? The world of objective contents of thought, especially of scientific and poetic thoughts and of works of art. Okay. Humane says world 1 is basically the physical, world 2 is the mental, and world 3 is a product of the mental. Very rough characterization. Okay, thank you, Humane. Yeah, so now the term internet is perhaps ambiguous. We could mean by the internet the infrastructure of cables, computer hardware, etc., together with the software that enables these to work. This, however, is not the sense in which I want to use the term the internet. I want rather to use the term to refer to the contents of all the web pages which are more or less publicly available. All right, this is a little weaselly, because if you're just defining all the stuff that is like written on the internet, couldn't you just define all the stuff that's like written in a library just the same? You know, like a library that's constantly being added to. Isn't that the third world here? So I think that's like, you know, that's probably what Popper had in mind, was the like the amalgamation of all like the sort of like works that would go into like a museum or a library. K. Pars, is rationally a world process that creates conditions of its self-realization. I mean, how Hegelian do you want to be? Like, Nazis sometimes subtract. Yeah, they do. Now, the internet in this sense does indeed contain almost all the content of scientific and literary works. I mean, there's just a giant library thing. There's like the Internet Archive, basically. Whether the internet contains the contents of works of art is perhaps more questionable. Yeah, I mean, you can record audio, but that's you know, a digital representation. You need a device to actually play the music. So is the music on the internet? Well, you can play the music recorded somewhere on someone else's computer through your speakers, but like, is that the music that's saved on someone's computer? Probably not. Not expecting all the nudes. Hey, that's art too. It's photography. Consider paintings and sculptures. There are, of course, pictures of most such objects on the internet, but it could be argued that the full content of a painting or sculpture can only be obtained by seeing the original. The internet must contain hundreds of reproductions of the Mona Lisa, but the full content of that painting can perhaps only be obtained by viewing the original in the Louvre in Paris. The case of paintings and sculptures is therefore arguable, but for the most part, the contents of the internet are the same as those specified by Popper's initial characterization of World 3. Yeah, I think this is too fast, but like, I get the point. Like, you're saying, look, okay, we can have at least some sort of representation of these things. It's not accurate, but you're getting, you know, a patina, a pastiche of these things. Yeah, so it's like, if you think sex is art, how do you actually have sex on the internet? You can have kinds of things like that, but like, you know, Lego Bit's making a joke, but there is part of like the human experience you're not going to be able to capture online. It'll be more difficult. Maybe you can get yourself like some toys or whatever, and a lot of people do this, but it's not the same thing as what you do in person. It's just different. And I'm not saying better or worse, but like sculpture, how do you experience it? How do you walk around a sculpture? Maybe you need VR glasses. Maybe we're going to get there. We're not there yet. So it's like, yeah. And this is what I was saying about the music. You need to be able to have an output device. The output device is not on the internet. The output device is, you know, your headphones. Wherever you're watching Twitch now, you have to have an interactive, some sort of user experience that goes with your interacting with my stream. It's like, it's a little bit more complicated than this person's making it out. Being online is human experience. Latvian says we are online more in person still. Yes. But the point is that it's a different experience that you're having at other times. But it's important to note that you are right. There's nothing like, you shouldn't prioritize one human experience over another. Like, to do that makes some experiences real that other ones aren't, and that's unfair. There's no guarantee that one experience counts as real. I'm just saying that they're different, and so the fact that you're experiencing things differently, well, then they're not the same thing. It's like you're doing a different thing. That's all. All right. K-Par says we're all systems and perfectly communicating with one another. Yeah. Was Popper describing World 3 as where we get our inspiration from? I think of this as more of the sum total of like human output. Not what we might get our inspiration there, but like this is more where we're putting our inspiration. Say Systems here is like Lumen. I don't know that person. He was using Mona Lisa IRL to sex IRL. Perhaps. I don't think that's what was going on, but maybe. Okay, continuing. I now want to argue that the main points which Popper makes about World 3 apply to the internet. To do so, I will use the device of the transformed quotation. I have no idea what the fuck that is. That is to say, I will give a quotation from Popper making an important point about World 3, substitute for the expression third world or similar variant, the expression the internet. So that the reader is not deceived, I will put the original expression in square brackets after the phrase the internet. The point of this, of course, is to show that what Popper originally said about World 3 is today true of the internet. Hey, what's up, Valpo? Lumen is a lot. Read a bit as an undergrad. Broke me for a few months. Okay. How you doing, Valpo? I hope you're getting to the end of semester as best you can. Or as best, in the best possible version of Valpo. Yeah. My first transformed quotation originally concerned the contents of World 3. It runs as follows. Among the inmates of the internet, are more especially theoretical systems, but inmates are just as important as important are problems and problem situations. And I will argue that the most important inmates of the internet are critical arguments, and what may be called the state of a discussion or the state of a critical argument, and of course the contents of journals, books, and libraries. Viper says, World 3, the realm of products of thought, when considered as objects in their own right, these products emerge from human World 2 activity, but when considered as World 3 objects in their own right, they have rebounded effects on human World 2 thought processes. Yeah, so I guess it's once the objects get out into the world and are affected by a lot of people, then they can be, there's feedback there. That's fair. Chocolate says could just do it. Not sure why the essay he's going to do it. Yeah, we'll find out. Valpo says writing exam questions now. Hope y'all are well, chat. Yeah. Well, we're getting by. That's what we're doing. You got an exam tomorrow too. This is your study break. Well, I appreciate you hanging out here on my stream, but more important to get that exam passed. Like, if you guys got to go, like, Twitch is not the most important thing. Yeah, okay, so Chocolate's got it. Humane says, once you define the internet as the author has, it seems like a fairly trivial claim that the internet is World 3. Wonder where they're going with it. Yeah, so, I mean, they've set it up this way. You're exactly right, Humane. So if you've set your system up this way, why? And like, okay, and the fact that you can do it, it's like, okay, whatever. There's going to be a little rough spots every so often, but that's really the question. Like, what are they getting out of this? And we are getting towards we're still in the sort of beginning setup phase. They've got a few more pages and then they have to have a point. We'll hopefully find out. Yeah, so Chocolate, I think what they really just means, not really inmates of the internet, say denizens. Among the denizens of the internet, among the denizens of the World 3. Just say denizens. Like, inmate sounds a little bit, what is it? Very, very dramatic. That's all. Okay. So nowadays, the contents of journals, books, and libraries are, for the most part, available on the internet. Carceral, yes. Everyone's like locked there. Sort of like a person's thoughts. Yeah, well, think of it more like creative output. Like, so how much is someone's thoughts like a painting? Now, the painting obviously had to deal with something with someone's thoughts, but like the painting itself, or like, you just say like some digital art, so it's not even like a painting. It's meant to be displayed on the internet. It's a fucking NFT. So you've got like some digital art that's out there, and yeah, and Homesteaders from Farmville, exactly. And that's what's on the internet. But of course, that is the product of human creativity. Yeah. Okay, so there may still be a few journals and books which only exist in paper form, but even this small remainder is likely to disappear before long. I think this is unfair to the old media. It'll still be around with just different purpose for it. As for critical arguments and the state of a discussion, they are arguably more easily obtained from the internet now than they were from the libraries of the late 60s and early 70s. That's fair. That's like one of the reasons why we have Just Chatting streams, why we have podcasts. That's where podcasts live, this is where the discussion is. It's on the internet now. So this is a good point from the author. It's like, where is the political discussion now? It's in these podcasts. It's in like media online. In any area of research, there are usually blogs in which the principal participants discuss the current situation in the field. Such blogs give a good picture of the state of discussion in the area and provide the relevant critical arguments. So you can already see, like, I said podcast, they said blog. No one actually uses blogs really anymore. It's just, different sites where you can post stuff like social media. They don't call those blogs, but it's interesting that this author uses them. And I think this is from 2013, so this ain't 2023. So let me just double check. Yeah, this is a 2023 thing. So this is not like who's actually writing on like philosophy blogs. Maybe there's like politics blogs, but it seems different. Anyway, Popper stresses in a number of places that World 3 is made by humans, and of course the same applies to the internet. In one striking passage, Popper compares the human creation of World 3 to spiders making webs and bees honey. The transform quotation runs as follows: "The internet is the product of men, just as honey is the product of bee spiders, or spiders' web of spiders. Larger parts of the internet are the unplanned product of human actions." Yeah. You use blogs? Yes. I mean... But Vipers, would you even say that that's like the main place you discuss stuff? I mean, maybe it is. But I mean, I still use blogs too. But I just think it's blogs are not the main driver. Like, there's other places. Yeah. Substack, Andy's in shambles. Yeah, well, that's the question. How much is really going on Substack? Like, I'm not on Substack that much. I have looked at some things. But, like, that's the question. It's just, this is a technical question, like a sociological question. Where is the discussion happening? Unreal says, I heard someone in a YouTube video talking about the loss of attention, how Lincoln Douglas debates were 6 hours long with hour-long opening statements, and people flocked to listen to them. Yeah, different times. And so the only way you could actually get your political information was like through these, like this sort of long form, I guess. Now we don't do that. We do other things because, well, we have other stuff, and the media is the way it is now for capitalist reasons and other reasons. But yeah. Yeah, so again, why is the internet the way it is? Well, Rule 34 exists, and things happen. It's the unplanned product of human actions. This is another fair point. Like, we have not planned the internet to go the way we expected it to. Popper introduces another analogy, that of building a cathedral. He says, working on science is a human activity like building a cathedral. I mean, kind of, but not really. A cathedral has like architecture plans. Science does not have architecture plans. Science is like, well, we're going to go investigate and find stuff out. Latvian says, World 34, oh, there we go. Now we're getting somewhere, Anti-Snowman. Latvian says, I get my messages across by stickers and tagging physical spaces and do as good as the same thing as in cyberspace. Yeah. Viper says, discuss no, but it's great for dissemination of code concepts, mostly due to correctly formatted text. That's fair. So that's actually a great point. Certain disciplines and certain discussions need certain technical formatting. And so you have to, it is like that, the technical necessities are going to like determine the sort of format that the discussion takes place. So if you are on the technical side of things, you need to be able to give out code pieces and snippets and other long forms of data, then you need to be able to do that. So yeah. But like, that's why philosophy is disseminated online, but it is also in more longer form usually, because we need the technical blocks of text sometimes to represent like formal arguments, to represent like long, like, thoughts in a bigger context, really. But like, yeah. So philosophy gets argued a lot of places, but like if you're going to do proper like academic philosophy, it's usually in a longer form. Okay. Chocolate lives in an open world. I play in a closed world on my computer. Well, yeah, because the world's a scary place. You play games because you have better control over there and you can actually have some fun without damaging yourself quite often. Unreal says, Unicode was a bit of a game changer for linguistic text. Before that, encoding was a nightmare. That's why the internet's the way it was. Hypertext, HTML, hypertext markup language was built with the express, it was from these scientists and researchers working for the government also, but it was like at universities. It was built, as far as I understand the history, was to communicate like sort of like this technical scientific stuff. And so that's why you needed to have this like these Unicode formats built into HTML so that you could actually communicate as you want to. As I've like to say is that the Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy, which is a great resource, it was the first online collaboratively edited encyclopedia, predates Wikipedia. This was a philosophy encyclopedia, and like it had technical stuff, and like they have like had technical content on the Stanford Encyclopedia since the get-go. So LaTeX wasn't just a torture device. Well, it depends how much you like it, K-Pars. Some people really like latex. So yeah. So no. I wouldn't, I mean, if you like it, it's not torture. With permission, of course. Okay. Working on science is a human activity like building a cathedral. This obviously applies to the internet, which is indeed like a cathedral rising up through the labors of vast number of workers. All right, I think this is stupid, but whatever. Because, like, again, cathedrals are planned. Donald Knuth meant well, but it's a touch of OCD, sure. It's fair. There's certainly a connection to logic, yeah. I mean, there are logical symbols built in from the get-go. I mean, they were used in math. I don't know if anyone's thinking about formal logic, but there are logical symbols built in from the very early internet formatting. Okay, Popper stresses another passage that individuals contribute to the third world are vanishingly small. The transformed quotation runs, all of us contribute to the internet's growth, but almost all our individual contributions are vanishingly small. I mean, that's fair. This one little video of mine is not a huge, not even like a blip in like viewership for Twitch. This passage has been criticized by Parusnikova in her 2016, where she writes, quote, another way of diminishing the status of the human mind can be found in Popper's argument that almost all of our individual contributions are vanishingly small. True, if the third world contains all knowledge accumulated in history and it continually balloons and reaches ever grander proportions, one person must surely gape at this achievement with the feeling of being tiny and overwhelmed. But Popper did not appropriately consider the other side of the same coin in this context, namely the fact that the whole third world has been produced by human minds. The same researcher can well feel proud of this achievement of all mankind and himself as a part of it. I mean, yeah, but like all of us are contributing to the world in a small way. It's like this is a matter of perspective is what this is. So what the author says is, indeed, Popper's use of the expression vanishingly small is too strong. Again, this is a matter of perspective. They're trying to make some bigger point here. I'm not sure. Aristotle gapes at this achievement, yes. I know what you're doing there, Vipers. It's a very small hole. Achievement, whatever. He gapes at everything. God damn it. As already remarked, the internet enables an instant exchange of critical arguments in blogs, chats, etc. It creates the possibility of constant discussion, provoking participants to respond and communicate. In this way, the internet accentuates the role of the individual subject in helping to create World 3. We can illustrate this point by continuing the cathedral analogy. Suppose there is this magnificent cathedral which is famous for a number of statues. Visitors come from all over the world to admire these statues, which we can suppose were made by several medieval craftsmen whose names are unknown. Would it be correct to say that the contribution of these individuals to the cathedral was vanishingly small? Again, this is a relative thing. Any one chip that the craftspeople made would have been a very small chip. The whole cathedral is a massive achievement. But yeah, like any one little strike of their hammer, that is small. It's relative. And so like they're trying to say, well, look, certain people do make outsized contributions. That's fair too. Humane says this is a really optimistic take. The third world also contains an inordinate amount of bullshit we shouldn't be proud of, surely. Yeah, there's the amount of garbage on the internet. That's a great point, Humane. Like, the amount of terrible things on the internet is also the case. I agree, Anti-Snowman. I don't like the metaphor here. Way less people building a cathedral than building the third world. Yeah, so this is... I do not like this metaphor in the least, actually. Like, they could have come up with something way better. Like, say, Library of Congress. Anyone might write, like, have a passage in a book in the Library of Congress, like a giant, like, say, Library of Alexandria. Everyone in the world, like, may have contributed a very little bit to the Library of Alexandria, but that was the sum total of knowledge at that point in the world. Like, just assume it was. I don't actually know. But, like, that would be a better thing. And the books going into the Library of Alexandria, no one knew what was in them. Like, that was like, it wasn't planned. And so again, I don't like the planning aspect of cathedrals, and I dislike this saying, well, some books are better than others. Of course they are, and those might have had an outsized effect on history. And it's like, well, yes, but everyone still could contribute, but this is all relative. We built our computers the way we built our cities over time without a plan on top of ruins. That's correct. Like, see, this is why I really dislike the cathedral thing, because cathedrals had architects. Our cities are much messier overall. Like, it's history, people's lives and deaths, and like all their little families and everything, changing things in cities. That's right. Same thing with computers and the internet. Just like a cathedral full of grand ideas and occasional child molestation. Yeah. Maybe he's going to use those differences. Perhaps, Chocolate Mints. I don't know, but the way they set this up does not give me hope at the moment. Yeah. Okay. Popper's next major point about World 3 is that although it was created by us, it becomes largely autonomous and in fact reacts back on us. This is equally true of the internet, as the following transform quotation shows. The internet is man-made, but the internet exists to a large extent autonomously. It generates its own problems, especially those connected with methods of growth, and its impact on any one of us, even on the most original of creative thinkers, vastly exceeds the impact which any of us can make upon it. That's fair. It's bigger than all of us now. Oh, you put the phi in the middle? Oh, you. Exactly. Very philosophical. Moreover, Popper stresses that no individual can master even a small part of World 3, and the same, of course, applies to the internet. Here's a transform quotation. We can act upon it, the internet, and add to it or help its growth, even though there is no man who can master even a small corner of the internet. Yeah. I mean, everyone is like, we deal with our own little slice of the world. Everything's bigger than us. That looked way worse than I intended. I meant it to represent insight. I might have to delete that. I mean, I guess I might have to. That looks fine to me. I don't know what you're talking about. What could you possibly mean, Aris? I mean, if you want it deleted, yes, but like you'll never read phi the same way again. Yeah, fee fi fo fum. Yeah, something. Okay. These quotations show that Popper actually provided a theory of the internet more than 20 years before the internet came into existence. I have one more transform quotation to give, but as it introduces a new point, I'll give it in the next section. Mario show phi, whatever. Subject S's phi's and circumstances C. God damn it, Aris. Just so anyone who doesn't know, this is a professor of philosophy you're dealing with. And you should go follow him. His streams are awesome. The problem of misinformation. Popper compares his World 3 to Plato's World 3, the world of forms. Popper points out that in contrast to the Platonic world of forms, his World 3 is man-made, changing, and contains false theories as well as true ones. The following transform quotation shows that all this applies equally well to the internet. Plato's third world was divine, it was unchanging, and of course, true. Thus, there is a big gap between Plato's third world and the internet. The internet, mine, is man-made and changing. It contains not only true theories, but also false ones, and especially open problems, conjectures, and refutations. Not just philosophy, ethics. Well, that's the good stuff. Who really cares about the metaphysics I do? Who gives a shit about logic, artificial intelligence, whatever. Yeah. The form of the false. Yes, there's the form of the true and the form of the false. And I mean, that's what, everything false in our world would map onto the form of the false in the world of the forms. That's how we know it's false, because like the false stuff maps onto the false and the true maps to the true, and you can get a whole Phrygian theory out of that. Okay. At the moment there are, wait, did I not read this? Oh, no. The internet has false stuff in it. At the moment there are important developments in the analysis of the internet and its effect on human knowledge and so on society. This area of study is usually described as the philosophy of information. The idea, and there's a big ethics of information now, of course, and then there's the ethics of artificial intelligence, which is related. The idea is that information is obtained from the internet and that this gives rise to the information society. Can Popper's ideas about the third world make a contribution to this important area of contemporary research? I think they can. But where's the form? That's a good question. So that's part of the conceit here, is that the third world, or World 3 for Popper, is already made up of ideas. Like, it's the content of the internet. It's not the words. It's the content. And so it's already been snuck in. So there already is a form because it's the content, which could contain the ideas, could contain forms, could contain other stuff. But the content itself is not the bits, it's not the encoding. That's the form of how it's that's the representation of it. But they said it has the content. And so, yeah, I know. This is very, very slippery stuff. It's a good question. Is the form or the false true? The form or the false maps to the Platonic idea of the false. So if you want to call it true, that the false maps to the false, that would be a true statement, but that'd be like saying false equals false, which would be true. So yeah. Humane says the product of human mentality are still products of human mentality when encoding the meaning of the internet. Yeah, good quote. So yeah. In the last transformed quotation given, it was stressed that the internet contains both true theories and false theories, that is to say both correct or sound information and misinformation. This is obviously the case. One need only think of Holocaust-denying websites which give an account which is totally at variance with reality of the concentration camps of the Second World War. It is, of course, still true to say that in our information society, people do generally obtain information from the internet, but it should be remembered that information is on the internet is mixed up with misinformation. So the transformed quotation we have just given from Popper leads what could be called the problem of misinformation. This can be stated as follows: whenever we want to obtain information from the internet, how can we be sure that what we download is correct information, not misinformation? This is a serious practical problem, and in the next and final section I will propose a solution based on a development of Popper's epistemology. Oh, no, just so you know, there was an exploit found in 7-zip. For you computer people out there, update your 7-zip. You can get a code execution from a bad zip file. Speaking of like downloading bad information, 7-zip has an exploit. There's no known exploit for it yet, but you should update your 7-zip. And so this is dangerous because people just download 7-zip once. It's an unzip thing like WinZip or whatever. But yeah. Okay. Viper says, Popper's World 3 contains the products of thought. This is, okay, so this is the further thing. Yeah, it corresponds to the current state of our knowledge and culture. That's the issue. It's the current state of our knowledge and culture. Our knowledge has ideas of it, forms. You could put that in our understanding. So yeah. Yep. That's right. Okay. A solution to the problem using a development of Popper's epistemology. So here's the point for people who were asking earlier. They want to solve misinformation on the internet using Popper. I'm a little dubious just because that's a hard fucking problem. Yeah, exactly, Anti-Snowman. I'm a little dubious about this, but we have to just see what this is. Yeah, I don't know, Anti-Snowman. That is a good question. We'll find out. When investigating a rather abstract problem, it is often useful to consider a concrete example. Here's one which I think is fairly realistic. Suppose someone, Mr. X, say, would like to minimize his chance of getting heart disease by adjusting his diet. What should Mr. X eat? The standard answer for several decades has been that he should approximate his diet to either the traditional Mediterranean diet or the traditional Japanese diet, or perhaps some combination of the two. Clark says, and Popper is sort of like Plato, but also includes false stuff. Yeah. Let me guess the answer is critical rationalism. I mean, it might be that simple. Just do what, they tell you to. Just think the way I think, and everything will be fine, I swear. And also give me all your money. Yeah. To simplify the discussion, let us concentrate on the traditional Mediterranean diet as it existed in the south of Italy before fast food outlets were established there. One feature of this diet is that, compared to the diet of Northern Europe, it contained much less of the saturated animal fats to be found in meat, cheese, milk, and butter. In fact, in the south of Italy, butter was hardly known at all. Olive oil was used instead. The diet contained little meat and cheese, but not very much, since there were few cattle in that part of the world. Instead, there was quite a bit of fish from the Mediterranean Sea, a whole range of beans, vegetables, and fruit, and a great deal of pasta and bread. In addition, of course, wine, especially red wine, was a common beverage. Epidemiological surveys combined with experiments into how plaques formed in the arteries suggested that this diet and its particularly low levels of saturated fat protected against heart disease. This view was quite revolutionary. It was introduced in the 50s, for previously it had been thought that the Northern European diet, based on much more meat, creamy milk, cheese, made those who consumed it stronger and healthier. Yes, eat the heavy foods. However, the view that the traditional Mediterranean diet was in fact better at preventing heart disease came to prevail and is now the standard view in medical circles. I mean, notice there's no quotations here. They're just assume this is a just so story. So like, just we're going to assume that like this history is like true. I don't know if it's true. I mean, I think it's the right history, but they didn't quote anybody. Recently, however, the standard view has been challenged by a new approach. According to this new line of thought, saturated fat is not as bad as it had been made out to be. What is really unhealthy in a diet is eating too many carbohydrates. Those who adhere to this new approach, advocating eating more meat and dairy products but less bread and pasta, than to be found in the traditional Mediterranean diet. Peach Tea Lingo, what's up? Nutrition science feels like is all over the place. Yeah, and this is a philosopher, so you can't trust their nutrition science. I mean, I don't want to speak about it generally because, of course, we have difficulties with like science in general, like replicating things that aren't just like hard science like physics. But even then we do. But like, yes, and this is a philosopher, and they quoted nobody, and so this is all just a just so story. Is that a problem? No. There are plenty of these just so stories where we thought something was the case, and then we found out later it wasn't. So they're using this. Even if it's wrong, we could have gotten a better example, but like you just kind of accept it. So yeah, but welcome in. Naturally, the internet contains websites advocating both approaches. For those who are interested, a website which promotes the new pro-saturated fat anti-carbohydrate is fatburningman.com. I'm sorry. I do not mean to be endorsing any of this crap. But like, yes, we now have had a fatburningman.com reference in this paper. Let us therefore return to our puzzled Mr. X. After surfing the internet, he feels hungry. Should he prepare a large plate of spaghetti with tomato and fresh basil sauce, or would it be better to have a steak with cheese sauce? Let us next see what parts of Popperian epistemology might be relevant to his dilemma. Now there's a reference easy, exactly. In fact, Popper considers the question of whether there can be a rational choice between alternative actions in chapter 1 of his book on objective knowledge. He writes, quote, "A man of practical action has always to choose between some more or less definitive alternatives, since even inaction is a kind of action. But every action presupposes a set of expectations, that is, of theories about the world. Which theory shall the man of action choose? Is there such a thing as a rational choice?" Thanks to his paper sponsor, fatburningman.com. Exactly, Humane. Yeah, go Action Hero. So, I mean, we got a nice rate from Ivan. Of course, we love Ivan. Ivan is a proponent of Bayesian rationality. Says, look, you take your options and then you update your prior understanding of the world to give yourself the best options going forward. And that's kind of like the general Bayesian approach. You say, hey, look, here's what I know. Here's everything I know given that, and then you like do your options based on what you think the outcomes will be, and then you choose accordingly. For this sort of thing, what we would say is we have a perfectly even probability. You don't know better which one it is at this point, and so you have to make a decision. But if there is no rational Bayesian sort of like update procedure here, what do you do? Pray they're not equal. Yeah, well, they're equal to some like close enough that you're worried. Take your chance from your chances. Yes. Hey, Maddie, what's going on? So, but like, we're just saying you don't have enough information to make a good decision here. And then that's the question. Is there such thing as a rational choice when you have basically even options and you have no new information? Bayesians Unite. Hey, Globus, how are you doing? If that's the best thing available. You know what we should do? We should give Globus a shout out in a bit. Let's give Globus a shout out. How you doing, Globus? I was lurking your stream a little earlier today, but shout out, Globus. Go. Hey, everyone go hang out with Globus. He streams nearly every day, sometimes twice a day, although I think he was off for a little bit. But he does AI news and updates and stuff like that, so he's a good dude to hang out with. So yeah, hope you've been well, Globus. Set priority either 0 or 100, so much easier. Exactly, chocolate mints. So, but like, this is the question of rational decision making. What do you do under low information? It's hard. It's just hard. So this leads to what Popper calls pragmatic problems of induction. In fact, Popper gives 2 such problems, but it is the second which is relevant to us. Popper states this problem and then answers as follows. So problem 2, which theory should we prefer for practical action from a rational point of view? My answer to problem 2 is we should prefer as a basis for action the best tested theory. Okay, so even though you don't know if one's better than the other, do the one that's better tested. No more complaints than usual? That's great. So, like, just nominal. Yeah. How do you know your p-hat is an accurate estimate? Okay, so this is interesting. So Popper says, look, even though we think that these things are at equal levels of probability, one is probably more tested. And so you do the one that's more tested because that would give a bigger error bar in the second one, I guess. Earlier in the same chapter, Popper defines degree of corroboration as follows. By the degree of corroboration of a theory, I mean a concise report evaluating the state at a certain time t of the critical discussion of a theory with respect to the way it solves its problems, its degree of testability, its severity of its tests it has undergone, and the way it has stood up to these tests. End quote. In the light of this, I think we could develop Popper's ideas by adopting the principle that, in the case of a choice, it is rational to prefer as a basis for action the theory which is best corroborated by evidence. I mean, that's not a very strong statement. Get the one that's best corroborated, okay, and you're referring to Popper now? Fine, but like, how is that really solving misinformation? I don't know. If when there's smoke, there's a 98% chance of and the fire 98% chance of the time, and forest fires occur 2% of the time, was it probably that when there's smoke, there's fire? Yeah, that there's a forest fire? Yeah, almost all the time. But like, yes. So when there's smoke, there's fire. There could be any sort of thing. You got to multiply. Don't ask me these questions. I'm a streamer. I'm not doing math. That's what chat's for. If you want to do math, you go do it on your own time, K-Pars. I'm trying to read. I'm here to read, not to do math. Streamer brain's real, by the way. It really is. Okay. If we apply this to Mr. X, then it's clear he should prefer the diet theory, which is better corroborated by evidence, whether this turns out to be the Mediterranean diet theory or the theory which advocates more meat and dairy products, but less carbohydrate. The answer is, in my view, correct in theory, but raises some practical problems. It would, in principle, be possible for Mr. X to find out on the internet about the evidence in favor for and against the two competing theories of diet and to form a judgment of which of the two theories is better corroborated by evidence. However, this is quite a skilled task, one which Mr. X may not be able to perform. Yeah, it's like, again, Mr. X is doing his own research on the internet. That's a little bit dangerous, as you know nowadays. Meta-rationalism? Sure, bike shop. I mean, there are a lot of theories of rationalism, and so some of these got like meta levels. So it's like, what do you do when you, like, your normal rationality doesn't work? Is there a fallback? And so, yes. It's like, there should be some way to consider stuff. And, you know, a lot of times what these theories come down to is that if things are exactly equal or you just don't know, flip a coin at that point. You know, it doesn't matter. So define meta. Well, at this point, it's just the failure of your whatever your regular level of decision making is. What's your fallback? That's all it is. It's your governing strategy for when things break. Zuckerbergian, yes. Zuckerberg used to live right over there, a few miles away. Like, yeah. Well, meta really means before. Like, meta is usually before. So like, metaphysics is before the physics. Like meta, like what else is a good meta word? I don't know. Usually it's not after, it's before. Like post is after, meta is before. Yeah, so how do you actually get the right information off the internet? It's hard. One way out of this problem for Mr. X would be to try to assess the reliability of different websites. Metamorphosis. Yeah, so, well, is that the same thing? Like before the morphosis? I don't know. Outside of, yeah. Metabolism, yeah. So, yeah, but meta, so it usually means outside. Yeah, outside. That's true. It's like sort of outside or before. Yeah. So it's after? Oh, meta means after? I'm just stupid. Okay. Okay, am I dumb? I'm dumb. There we go. Thank you, chat, for metaphysics means after. So it was the book after the physics. I got it switched. I'm not kidding about streamer brain. Yeah. Yes, Humane. We're getting to the dumb part. As you feared, like, it's going to get stupid, it's getting stupid now. Do not do your own research on the internet. If it's Onion or Fox.com, if it's on Wikipedia, NCSI, or some others, you may be better off. I remember meta as with or after. Yeah. So, yes, Chad is correct. I'm wrong. Meta is like 6 different definitions. None of them are connected at all. Okay, so maybe I'm less wrong than I thought, but I'm still wrong. Okay. So the question is, how do we actually assess quality on the internet? And this person is just going to go off the rails at this point, I think. Follow the world to its origin. Yeah, but Bike Shop, we use words differently now than we did in the past, and that's fine. We just have to all understand what we're talking about. Just because it's in the past doesn't make it right. What's the meta definition of the 6 definitions? Exactly. Okay, one way out of this problem for Mr. X would be to try to assess the reliability of different websites. Mr. X could, for example, consult the National Health Service of the UK if they want to. This is the website of the UK's National Health Service, or NHS, and the views expressed on it are approved by the British Medical Association and so represent mainstream views in scientific medicine. Don't come to the United States anymore, because who the fuck knows what our government is going to tell us at this point. Yeah, anyone who doesn't understand a word based on their etymology is an insect in my eyes. That sounds accurate. That is very subjective of me. No, that's how we communicate, Bike Shop. That's literally how we communicate. The words we use now do not mean the same things as they did in the past. Like, you can get a lot of words don't mean the same thing as they do in the past. And this is one of the problems when you're reading, like, say, Shakespeare. The words don't mean the same thing. So, like, there's a famous soliloquy that goes, "The king is kind." And, like, it starts off, "The king is kind." And kind doesn't mean nice. It just means type back in the day. And so what you have to understand is that he's the person saying the king is kind, saying the king is of a certain type, and then he goes on to say, you know, the kind of person he is. He's a scummy person. So the fact that he says the king is kind is to say the king is kind of scum. Like, so the words change even over a few hundred years, and so the idea that you're going to track it back to understand it, I mean, you'll understand something, but you have to understand how it's used now. Semantic drift, exactly, Unreal Brian. Pervasive linguistic process, yeah. So the meanings change over time, and if you think you're going to understand everything through history, well, you have to understand the current state of affairs too. Yeah, and so do you need to understand the origin of the word? You do need it for some things. Most of the time, I don't know the origin of most of my words. Do I know the origin of the word most? No, I don't. Do I know how to use the word most correctly? I think for the most part I do. So yeah. What is the etymology of Skibidi Ohio Riz? I think we can actually point exactly to the history of that one though. What does awful mean? Did it mean something different in the past? Like, was it full of awe? Because that would be completely different. Humane says internet used to mean the parts of the spider's webs that connected one spider web to another. Oh, cool. And now it means the place where you can find illustrations of those same spiders engaging in lewd acts. That's true. Yeah, or nice. Used to mean silly and foolish. Yeah. Latvian viewers, know your meme will tell us. Exactly. Know your meme. Yeah, full of awe. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So there we go. We have a current example of semantic drift. Based. Yeah. So like based is moving around now. Bike Shop doesn't mean you can't not follow the word through time. Well, that wasn't the claim of Bike Shop. The claim was you need to. We don't need to know the history of these words. It would be helpful to understand what's going on, but we do not need to in most conversations. Valpo says, yeah, Skibidi has a clear Putnam-style baptism. Yeah, so you can, like, baptize. And, like, be like, this is when this Skibidi toilet, like, there is actually a Skibidi toilet meme that we can point to, like an original upload. Speaking of, my duck rabbit, like this duck rabbit right here, that duck rabbit I found on the internet in 2003. It disappeared from the internet at a certain point. I think it was 2003. I'm old. And every subsequent use of this duck rabbit, and it is around, you will find it other places, or goes back to my original re-upload in like 2007 or 2008. So this duck rabbit only exists still on the internet because of me. And like there's people with tattoos of this duck rabbit. So yeah. So like there is like I found it at some point and like I rebaptized this duck rabbit. Yeah, exactly, bike shop. Like it would be nice. Like it's just hard. Yeah. Laffy says, I want to know if there's some like archaic use of skibbity as some kind of onomatopoeia from the 1800s. A lot of these things do show up that way. It's like not everything is like as new as we think. Okay, so again, so this author is now appealing to authority to say, well, how do you know this is a good website or a good diet? Appealing to authority, and like the UK's National Health Services. Mr. X could well decide that it is better to trust the reviews of this website rather than others, which do not have the same degree of backing from leading scientists. Now, this is a perfectly sensible strategy, but yet not entirely satisfactory. It is based on an appeal to authority, while critical rationalism suggests that people should not rely on authority, but rather form their own opinions in a rational and critical fashion. But how can an average man such as Mr. X, who is not a scientific expert, perform such a task? And humane, right there. While critical rationalism suggests. So this is exactly where you said we were going. So DeviantArt, let's see. Maybe we found a link. Is this something different? Let's find out. Let's see if I can get banned from another picture from... Yeah. Oh yeah, this. Exactly. God fucking damn. What is this? Yeah. So when was this uploaded? This was uploaded a long time ago. But you can see 2015. Oh. This is me. This is fucking literally me. I commented on the thing in 2015. Oh. Yeah, so literally me. You can see me, Noger 1, because I used a 1 every so often over there. And so, yeah. So, and you can see the copyright here is 2011. So this has had to have been done after. Well, no, it had to be uploaded at least after I did it. If I get fucking TOS'd for that underboob, I'm going to kill somebody. Oh. So this is what I mean when I say I was the one who re-uploaded it. Like I found, like someone linked that to me years ago and I was like, oh, this is mine. You did your first philosophy paper on the word meta 50 years ago. Well, there you go. That's impressive. If I'm counting down 2050, I'm going to explode. Yeah. Oh, but you see, like, sometimes the world's a smaller place than you realize. Oh, what was hilarious was Ivan was looking at an old, at some link on Daily News, which is a philosophy news website. And it had been like, they reposted something from like 2015. And so he was reading all the comments and he read a comment and he was like, that's a good comment. And I was sitting there looking at it. It was my fucking comment from like almost a decade ago. And I'm like, you're stealing my comment. Like you're stealing my content. God damn it. And like he hadn't realized it was my fucking name on the comment on the fucking post that like 10 years ago that he was like, that's a good line. At least I don't think he did. But yeah. Okay. So how do we become good critical rationalists? This paper's asking now. The answers to this new problems lie in making changes in education which prepare students better for the age of the internet. Okay, so now we've gone full hand waving. Full hand waving right here. Just full on. We have to fix everything. Quality. Hey, thanks for sticking around, Ivan. Appreciate it. I just thought that was like the funniest shit. Like, but like this thing here where like there was a random posting of the tattoo of the duck rabbit. I'm like commenting on it from like 10 years ago. Okay. At the moment, many subjects such as history, science, and medicine are taught in a rather dogmatic fashion. The accepted facts are presented and the student just has to learn them. Many of these facts are really theories or at least involve theories, and yet these theories are assumed without giving any evidence for them. Accepted facts are now... Thank you for the subscription. Read this.
What's up, everybody?
How you doing, Retheus? We're almost done reading this paper. Having a good time. So, yeah. Yeah, how you doing, Retheus? That was a funny thing you posted on my Discord earlier. Yeah. Oh, I want to also mention it because it had to do with Quine. Quine's granddaughter messaged me because I'm in New York and like I have like a little public philosophy blog. So Quine's granddaughter messaged me asking me if I knew of any talks on her grandpa's philosophy. And so I actually got back to her and I said, look, if you're really Quine's, I didn't say if you're really Quine's granddaughter, I said as Quine's granddaughter, Quine's name has such a big name still in philosophy that you can walk in and talk to any philosopher in like New York that's like studying Quine and they will be happy to talk to you and discuss it. So I sent her to Kit Fine. I don't know if she ever went to and talked to Kit Fine, but Kit Fine's like a major philosopher, and he was giving a talk on, he was giving a class on philosophy of language that semester, and he was doing a class or two on Quine's philosophy of language. And so like, I mean, it was kind of funny. Yeah. I'm not kidding about any of this shit. That's like 100% true. I don't know if she ever contacted Kit, but like, yeah. Yeah, like this is serious. Like this is like legit like stuff, read this. Comment, Kuhn would characterize this as indoctrinating the future scientists in accepted paradigms. Yes. Yes. So like this is a little bit like, and we were talking about facts earlier, how like facts are embedded in systems in like these paradigms as you bring up. So it's like everything, and then when the paradigm changes, as like, you know, from Newtonian mechanics to Einsteinian relativity, a lot of things shift with it. It's called Kuhn loss, and like other things, like you had things you understood and now you don't understand them before. I always found that kind of fascinating. So it's like what used to be facts are not the same facts anymore. Yeah. Accepted facts are now so easily obtained from the internet that there is no longer a strong reason for that learning them by heart. Yeah. So the fact that we have tech, we can always pull up facts. But yeah, but how do you trust these facts versus other ones? However, what we cannot immediately tell is whether the alleged information we download from the internet is genuine information rather than misinformation. Yeah. So now they're reiterating what they said they were going to solve, and they didn't fucking solve it. Yeah, so I had something else to tell you, read this, but I forgot now because, you know, reading philosophy and streamer brain, but yeah. AI supplanting traditional research. Well, this has always been the case. There is a quote, it might be apocryphal, but it's from Plato, where Socrates, like it's a Platonic dialogue of Phaedrus, where Socrates is saying that he hates the technology of the day because people no longer have to think for themselves. They don't have to remember things. They don't have to think for themselves because they can look everything up in the new technology of the day that is books. It's books. Plato is complaining about books. People don't have to know anything anymore because they can just go look it up. This is an ancient problem. People being like, oh, the youth don't have to think, they don't have to know anything because they can just go use their new tech and they don't have to think anymore. So it's a really actually interesting problem in the philosophy of technology that is 2,500 years old. Yeah. Latvia says, what's the difference between saying that and I don't need to memorize the text as I can get the book from the library anytime? That's exactly it. Andrew M. Bailey's Copium did amuse me. Vipers, I thought that was interesting. I actually expect that Andrew M. Bailey gives no fucks about me, and he actually does like the format. I think that was actually honest. I bet he didn't even watch through the whole video, but I appreciate that he commented and on my video. For anyone who doesn't know, in the Discord, links over here. The one of the video. Like we read papers just like this one, and it was a paper we didn't like. I didn't like it. But like the author is just some guy. I mean, this is not like any on the internet, and he found it and he posted a nice comment on the review, even though we ended up trashing the paper. I actually believe that he liked what I was up to, or we are up to. Even if he doesn't give a shit about our comments. Because one nice thing about this is not going to fuck with him in any way. Like, he doesn't give a shit that we didn't like the paper. He might even like some of the feedback. So, it's like, yeah. It could be copium, but I actually expect that he was like, oh, cool format. Like, I'll listen to a few of the comments, and after that, it doesn't matter. Socrates being old and grumpy and Luddite. Yes, exactly, Rethius. It's getting faster to look up to. If we get the neural link, then it'll be even faster. Yeah. I mean, it's already ridiculously fast. I mean, who doesn't have a fucking cell phone like in their reach right now? And like, if you're on Twitch, you are either on your phone or you're on the internet already. Like everyone here. The youth just listen to Dionysian poetry and ignore the Apollonian ones. Yeah, god damn it, youth. Exactly, K-Pars. Chocolate says, well, if you were looking to use, prove, or disprove, or add, you probably have to learn it, so learn it, motherfucker. Well, that's the problem. There's still stuff that has to be done. Bailey does Bitcoin stuff right. He's more techie than average. Yeah, I think that's right, actually, Valpo. I'd forgotten about that. But like, yeah, this is why I actually suspect Bailey is perfectly happy with more internet stuff that discusses him. He's probably in the media, all news is good news. There's no bad news. Like, there's no critical news. If people are talking about his stuff, he's happy. And I think he's probably right in that sort of thing. But I don't know. But yeah, it was just funny. So if you're in my Discord, you can see, like, or you could also go look it up on one of the recent videos from Andrew and Bailey. Yeah, all publicity is good. I am really losing it. All publicity is good publicity. Exactly. No such thing as bad press. Exactly. Humane and anti. Appreciate the corrections, because my brain starts going after a while. Okay. So yeah. So how do you know genuine information rather than misinformation? Thus, teaching in the internet age, we should focus on presenting to the students not just the accepted theories, but the evidence on which they are based. I will now try to illustrate how this might be done by considering an example from science teaching, namely teaching of Newtonian mechanics in the last years of school or first years of university. Excuse me. Yeah, so, I mean, like, really? Like, really? You're going to give an example of how to, like, actually explain all of science to, like, people who don't understand things in a page. Like, this is not, like, I can just tell you, there's not enough space here to give a new idea. And I think this is what Humane was also criticizing. Like, how is this actually going to solve anything? All right. When the author says, when I first learned Newtonian mechanics more than 60 years ago, it was taught in a very dogmatic fashion. We began by learning Newton's laws, such as force equals mass times acceleration, F equals ma, but no attempt was made to justify these laws in any way. They were just assumed. We were then taught how to apply these laws by being given a whole series of quite complicated problems to solve. Curiously, though, these problems did not include the problem which had originally prompted Newton to invent his laws, namely the problem of explaining motion of the planets around the sun. Now, suppose now that we want to teach Newton's laws in a non-dogmatic fashion by presenting the empirical evidence for these laws. This can be done by introducing some history of science into the teaching. A natural starting point would be a discussion of Galileo's law of falling bodies. The experiments whose results corroborated Galileo's law empirically were quite simple ones carried out on pendulums and balls rolling down inclined planes. These experiments are cheap and easy to perform, and it would be a simple matter to get students to carry them out at the beginning of their study of mechanics. In this way, they would see for themselves the empirical evidence for the first basic law in the field. I mean, you do this if you have any experimental component to your classes. I mean, you can do this if you have like a class with a lab. Like, that's what you do. Like, that's true. After this, there could be an account of Kepler's laws and how they were corroborated by Tycho Brahe's data. This sets the scene for introducing Newtonian mechanics as an attempt to explain both Galileo's law of falling bodies and Kepler's law of planetary motion. Chocolate says, do we get to strike down laws if our labs don't pan out? Yeah, that's actually a really interesting question. What happens when the experiments start to go wrong? And like, then it becomes an issue of like, well, what kind of experiments count? Like, then you have to check, like, does all the experimental setups working? And so this becomes a real issue. And it's like replicability in science is a big deal. Yeah. Kepler says Kepler considered only circular orbits, Brahe added ellipses. Yeah, see, like, this is the issue. Once you get into the actual history, things get complicated. And it's not very easy. I thought Kepler... Oh, no, it was, what's his name? Copernicus. So, yeah. So, Copernican theory, then Kepler, and then Brahe, yeah. But Newton then gave them a mechanism for why ellipses emerge from gravity. Okay. Yeah, so, like, things do get complicated. And I cannot remember my history at the moment either. It might be too difficult mathematically at this stage to derive the law that planets move in ellipses from Newton's theory, but it would be possible to give a mathematical derivation of the simpler case of a circle, which approximates to an ellipse, and could be explained that the full derivation will be presented at a later stage when the student has learned more mathematics. I think it would also be desirable to contrast Newton's theory of action at a distance with Descartes' view that all actions must take place by contact. You see, if you're now all of a sudden do this humanist thing where you have to learn history and philosophy and science all together, that's a lot more shit. That's the problem here. This is a person saying, oh yeah, we're going to have this great education here so people can understand the development of science. Like, really? What does it mean when they say that planets move in ellipses? Okay, so like the planets go around the sun. The closest shape that we have to the actual movement of the planets is an ellipse, which is sort of like a stretched circle. So a circle has the circle goes around one point. Ellipses go around 2 points. So like there's 2 points, and they kind of has a consistent distance around those 2 points, and that's what it means. You put the sun at the middle, but like the planets go around it as if there were 2 points there, not just 1 point for the sun. That's all I think it means. You don't know enough for the math for this, Snap. Yeah, see, this is the problem. Like, we're picking and choosing which histories to teach at this point. They mean there's an orbit with a major and minor axes and 2 focal points on average. Yeah, so it's the best I can do. This is not my expertise is doing math, but like, yeah, it's just the difference between a circle and an ellipse is that there's 2 focal points, and then the distance is kind of like averaged out between the distance between those 2 points. So, best I can do. I mean, there's GIFs, like there's cool pictures. You can see how it works, and they're pretty straightforward. If you just like Google it, I'm sure you can find it. Yeah, Viper's got it right there. He's got the diagram. K-Par says if you had a rubber band and 2 thumbtacks stretched out, a rubber band and traced the shape would be an ellipse. Yeah, it's also a conic section at an incline. Yeah, see, now you're getting into the math stuff. But like, yeah. Yeah, so, okay, it would also be desired to learn Descartes' view of things. Yeah, sure, we could also teach Descartes to everyone. Auntie says, I feel like this paper might end up being the episode of It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia where they debate if God exists and Mac makes the case for dense belief in science and belief being a faith. If a sitcom makes the same point, I don't know if the paper has done much yet. The problem is sometimes TV shows do a good job, and you can't always tell like if it's going to do a good job or a bad job. Like sometimes like there's what was that the Good Place, and they had like an ethics professor that supervised the Good Place because they wanted to get the ethics right. And so like some shows like they do a good job, and I wouldn't even put it past Always Sunny to like do a good job on some of this stuff. So even though they're a comedy and they were meant to be silly, that doesn't mean they got the philosophy wrong. All right, anyway, Descartes' view seemed much more plausible at the time, and this led many contemporary researchers to be skeptical of Newton's law of gravity. Their doubts were overcome by the empirical successes of Newton's theory and explained not just Kepler's laws held to a high degree of approximation, but also that deviations from these laws occur due to gravitational attractions between planets, and explaining not just Galileo's law, but the variations in the acceleration due to gravity at different depths and altitudes. Okay, so all of this is just fucking bullshit, because I don't know the history, and you're not explaining anything here. You're just saying it's complicated. That's all that's being said here, and like, that's not helpful. Good Place Season 1 is great, yeah. Let's get them doing epicycles for everything, not just planets. Yeah, and so, again, there's, like, ways you can gerrymander systems to make them work, too. And it's like, well, we gerrymander shit all the time. Okay. Yeah, a brief account could also be given of the successes of Newton's theories in explaining the tides and comets. So, like, all of us now we're explaining everything. Like, how much... Like, have you tried teaching kids stuff? Like, this is hard. This person's already old. They said they did this stuff 50 years ago. This is no spring chicken here. They have to realize you're not teaching kids any of this shit. The point of all this would be not only to show the students that Newton's theory was accepted because of its high degree of empirical corroboration, but also that a theory which at first seems surprising and counterintuitive can gain acceptance through empirical success. That's true. The Good Place had Todd May as an advisor. Yeah. So that was the point. It's just you don't inherently say people fuck up. Like you could say like, certain people are going to fuck it up, but not everyone. Yeah. I'm sure. Yeah. This is one of the smart kids, of course. Recursion. Can't say that. Recursion noise root, sir. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, teaching science by this historical approach, which emphasizes the evidence which led to the acceptance of theories, would give a better understanding of the subject. In mechanics, for example, a student often becomes confused about the question of centrifugal force versus centripetal acceleration. Newton's derivation of the shape of planetary orbits proceeds by considering the natural tendency of a planet to move off in a tangent according to Newton's first law, which is overcome by the gravitational attraction of the sun, which pulls the planet round into an ellipse. You see, like, if you didn't understand this stuff already, because I assume everyone in chat is over 18. If you're not, don't fucking tell me because you'll get banned. And like, you've already gone through school. There is no chance in hell that any of this makes sense. And like, so the idea you're just going to explain this to kids in like a short thing without giving all this history, building up all this background knowledge. This is why, like, yeah, it's like, yeah, you can, but like, this is hard, man. Like, go actually try to teach kids shit. This example helps very much to clarify the issue of centrifugal force versus centripetal acceleration. Like, does it? Does it really? Or does it to you who's known this for 50 years? I mean, maybe this person does teach and like maybe it does work, but again, you need kids that are going to actually listen, and that's not really what happens. Of course, students would still have to try to solve those difficult problems applying Newtonian mechanics to various complicated situations, but with a better understanding of the principles of theory, they would find these problems easier. Exactly. It's like, come on, dude. It's like, yeah, everything was like, the kids will just get it. Like, yeah. There are a number of other benefits of this kind of teaching of both science and other subjects. Students learning how older and less satisfactory theories have come to be replaced by new ones, which are better corroborated empirically, would naturally acquire the habit of evaluating their beliefs in light of evidence, and so become less likely to be deceived by misinformation. One argument which is often used by the anti-scientific is, quote, why believe in what scientists say as their views are always changing, end quote. I was saying this earlier. It's not true that the views are always changing. You just don't say it as like absolutely never going to end right here. You believe the best science of the day. But yeah, that's what I was saying this earlier to, God, blanking already. Remember people's names. Brain starts going. Where are we? Ugh. Yeah, I can't even remember names from earlier today. Yeah, Lego. Exactly. I was saying this earlier to Lego. And, it was like, yeah, science is changing, but that's not a reason to discount the science of the day as the best we have. It's not wrong. It's just, it will change in the future. Yeah. So those who are taught science in a dogmatic fashion might fall for this argument, but those who are taught by the historical approach, which emphasizes evidence, will be aware that these changes of scientific opinion are changes from an older theory to one which is better corroborated empirically, and so constitutes a strength rather than a weakness of science. Yeah, and this all, yes, it's the strength of science that it adapts to things. You get new information and it changes and it incorporates the new knowledge, and that's important. Yeah, so usually they're not changing. Well, little bits are changing within the overarching structure. So you learn more in that paradigm about what is actually going on. But then big things change every so often too. Yeah. Like the idea is like, yeah, that's part of the issue is this isn't exactly like, this is very, positivistic, that you're just building knowledge on knowledge. And that's not exactly what happens either. Humane says, this is really reductive reading. Popper was aiming at with critical rationalism. The author stresses empirical corroboration, but Popper's point was much more about the procedural requirements for genuine critical discussion within the relevant community. Yeah, and I think this is rather it's over in 2 paragraphs. It's just a little bit simplistic in the end. It's like, oh yeah, if we just taught a little bit more about the history and humanities, everything would work out. It's just like, nah, dude, things are not that simple. But let's finish this up. When discussing what theory people should base their actions on, I assumed implicitly that there was a theory which was both very well corroborated and much better corroborated than its rivals. This is often the case in science, but not always. There can be situations where none of the existing theories in an area has been very successful and become well corroborated. This could be the case, for example, in some branches of psychiatry. An education which lays emphasis on evidence would be very useful in dealing with such situations because it would lead to a recognition of one's own ignorance and the consequent need to act with caution. Those brought up to accept theories dogmatically would be more inclined to accept a theory for which there is little to no evidence, and acting on such weakly corroborated theories is a recipe for disaster. I mean, this is all very noble stuff here, Well, at least he put it out into the luminiferous aether, exactly. It's part of World 3 now, for better or worse. Yeah, misinformation, as it were. Author says, I'm not, of course, saying that the kind of education I have been advocating is the answer to all problems, and now they're just pulling everything back, hedging. It would improve things, but would not enable the average person to evaluate the evidence for a scientific or medical claim as skillfully as an expert. It should, however, enable such a person to follow the main arguments in favor against a hypothesis and so understand why the majority of scientific experts accept the hypothesis in question, if this is indeed the case. Someone who had a grasp of the main arguments would be making an informed choice rather than a choice based entirely on blind faith in the views of experts. And that's it. So yeah, I mean, these are noble thoughts, all of these. Does this add a whole lot more to anything? I'm not so sure. Like, it's okay. It says, look, you have to be able to do a little bit of have a little history, a little background. But, it's like you do the best you can. If people were educated here, it would be better. It's like, no shit, Sherlock. But anyway, if you are now in chat, feel free to rate the paper. You rate the paper by using the emotes in chat below, and you can see them on the screen now. If you thought it was fun and made your brain dance, you can write brain dance. You do have to spell and capitalize correctly. If you have better TTV installed, you can, just tab through. Humane Color says nay. Lafayette says meh. Nog Scream for existential artistic drama, Nog Oro, Ouroboros for deeper ancient ideas, Nog Knife, slicing and dicing arguments. Yeah, so if it's got complicated arguments, the Ouroboros, the knife, the Ouroboros for you're talking about ancient big ideas. Nog Navel for navel gazing only for academics, Nog Turd for something that's all style, no substance, still poop underneath, and Nog Grapes for big claims that shrivel up. You can also use the global Twitch emotes, vote yay and vote nay, and my vote meh. And everything that's in the green will, I have an overall rating that comes out of this. Calculate. The green ones make the points go up, the ones in red make it go down, and the vote meh kind of makes everything go towards the middle. Yeah, so thanks for the rating, Ivan. Unreal Brian, dumpster fire. Unfortunately, I don't use the dumpster fire. I could, there is a global Twitch emote, but I don't know if everyone has it. I have one. Vipers, thank you. Ivan, thank you. Anti-Stoneman, thank you. K-Pars, thank you. Yeah, so a bunch of mez and grapes and a little navel gazing. I know what you're using. Well, it's just that it doesn't register on my capture. Sorry. So if you want to say dumpster fire, use one of the other ones, I appreciate too. Yeah. It all costs money. Hey, what's up? You guys got here. Hello. Yeah, exactly. Hope you're doing well today. It all costs money. Yeah, I saw you post in the Prof Wife X stream about the HMO or the CEO got shot today. We were joking about that earlier here too. It's just that was an assassination. Someone did not like that man. But yeah, so what am I going to give this? I'm going to give this, this is just very sort of meh to me. So I'm going to vote meh this. It also is not grapes. I thought it made big claims that, it's just it made claims. It said we're going to come up with some new ideas about how to use Popper to combat misinformation. I don't think it really came up with anything new. Did it really apply the Popper? As Humane says, it is kind of very light. It just wasn't great. Yeah, so, yeah. All course, you dropped that link in several places without any attacks or opinions to garner thoughts. Yeah, I'm laughing my ass off because it was so obviously a professional hit. If you watch the video, the guy shoots the dude, the gun jams, the guy clears the gun, the jam, and shoots the dude again. Who has that level of confidence and calmness to clear a gun jamming and then escape immediately, disappear off all videos in New York City by getting into Central Park? This was very well thought out. Yeah. Unreal says, to me it seemed all over the place, so obviously a professional hit from one of those. Well, the idea that it was so unreal, the idea, you understand, someone was able to disappear in Midtown within a minute or two of shooting someone. This is one of the most photographed places with security cameras everywhere. They disappeared with a clear getaway strategy, and they were no one can find them after. And this is a high profile person that got shot. This was so well thought out. Maybe it wasn't professional, but this is super well thought out. Yeah. Humane says awful paper, didn't need Popper at all to argue for the main point. The claims concern World 3 and the internet were trivial as introduced. Yeah, it was just sort of very, very light on the history. Popper was interpreted incorrectly and reductively in the Old Testament. Improve education as a proposed solution was a massive problem. Misunderstanding, misinformation is naive at best. Yeah, so just not good. Yeah. Yeah, my favorite response is so it begins. Yeah, we're wondering if there's going to be copycats going after other CEOs that people don't like. Yeah. When I heard he was still at large, you were still shocked, unreal. That's exactly the thing. Like the fact that they got away in Manhattan from someone this important, that's why I'm thinking this was someone paid for this one. Yeah, so if anyone else wants to get in, you got a minute to go. What I liked about this paper is it was talking about a subject that I was thinking about, and as a beginner in reading philosophy, I could follow what they were talking about. It was actually not badly written. It was kind of nicely written. That's fair. There was a few spots where they got into the weeds, but it was at a level that was easily understood, which was not bad. The problem is they didn't, as I think Humane said, they didn't get all the ideas right, or they just had a very light engagement with it, and so it's just not like... if they had just gotten a few more things correct, it would have been a much better paper, but it's just not there. You don't want to